Hey. Clean studio here. Hold on. Hello, folks, and welcome to Give Life. I am your host, meek, mild-mannered Paul Abramson. Broadcasting it to you from my multi-trillion-dollar recording studio. Okay, hey, so this is episode 10. I want to do a review of the first 9, but first I want to hit a little bit of logic on things. Just a second here. Oh, kind of stuck. Okay, never mind. I'll have to figure that out later. Okay, I want to use some logic, and actually before that I want to pray. I've prayed in a couple of previous episodes, and I know that people from a wide variety of backgrounds are watching this. Some people, we have become so insane in the modern world that some people are offended by prayer. Now, I consider that insane because the material world is an illusion. We're in an electrical simulation. We're in a hologram. Every single atom is 99.999 plus percent empty. We're the ones. Well, okay, the spiritual. Okay, let's see. Don't want to get into too much stuff here. Anyway, I'm going to pray. If you can't stand prayer, you have 3 choices. You can either burst into flame, or you can start melting. Oh, help me, I'm melting. Or you can jump up and run around the room like a chicken with your head cut off, okay? So those are your 3 choices. I'm going to go ahead and pray here. And I always pray before I do these, of course. I give life. Jesus said it's more blessed to give than to receive. My goal in this is to give you thought-provoking things. You're not going to agree with me on everything. Of course you aren't. When you actually, here's a good example. When you go in a supermarket, do you want one of everything? No, you don't. What is this vegetable? What is that thing? I mean, some of the stuff you may not even know, but there are things in there that maybe are helpful or useful or flavorful that you want to buy. So okay, let's jump to a college professor. You may not want everything about that professor, but on a certain subject, on certain things, they can help you. They can give you ideas and help you pass the test, hopefully. Anyway, so you're going to disagree with me on some things theologically, whether they're Jewish, Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, a skeptic, maybe you're an atheist, and that's there's reason. I need to. So I'm in my mid-60s. I need to not get off subject. I have a hard time staying on subject. There's reasons for every religion, for every belief system. I lived in Berkeley for 5 years. I've told you that before. This is episode 10. There's reasons why people are atheists. God has not made himself obvious. Well, he has, in a way, but we're so used to it. We're used to it. We're used to seeing the stars in the heavens. We're used to seeing plant life. You put a seed in the ground, and this miracle, this plant, starts growing all by itself, and these things have become just second nature where, oh yeah, we can explain that. See my artist drawing showing evolution, made that happen all by itself. Anyway, so people have gotten used to that and don't realize all the miracles that are involved in life, both in animal life, plant life, the third kingdom, which includes mushrooms and all these other things. Okay, so from my perspective, because of our material world and the high technology, we are losing track of reality and the most important things in life. And the most important things in life is our spiritual, our relationship with our Creator. Why did God make us? God or gods? He, she, it, or they. Now, I used to live in Berkeley. California. He, she, it, or they. Okay, it's just, I used to say that in California sometimes. I haven't said it on this series this first time, but God or gods, why were we put here? Did aliens plant us here? Well, if aliens planted us here, who put the aliens on their planet, right? Did evolution happen there, or did God create them? Or I mean, there's a lot of questions that we don't know that people strongly disagree on, that probably strongly disagree. But I'm going to pray, because I believe we're not at the height. Some people think man is the measure of all things. Well, we're a partial measure, but there's a lot we don't know. So let me pray here. With having said all of those things, Father in heaven, thank you for your blessings. Lord, there's so much we cannot see. There's so much in this world around us that is happening, to my understanding of reality, Lord, in spiritual realms, spiritual dimensions. And we are the ones in a hologram. We are the ones in an electrical simulation, this temporary thing, this temporary incarnation that we call reality. But we know now scientifically it's empty. Every single atom, everything is almost completely empty, well over 99.999%. Help me, Lord. Lord, help me to communicate your truths. Help me to not be inaccurate. Help me to be a faithful steward of the things that have been taught and given to me. And I pray for the people who are watching this. They're of all different kinds of backgrounds. Maybe they're curious. Maybe they're searching. Maybe they have deep problems. Lord, please protect, help, bless, forgive. If they ask you for forgiveness, please forgive the people watching this. Save us, Lord. Please save us. Bring us to you, I pray. I don't deserve it. Anyway, help me to help others, Lord. Thank you for many blessings. I praise your holy name. In the Messiah's name I pray. Amen. Okay, now, I called this Review Russia Reconsider. I wasn't sure what to call this episode because it is a review, but I want to bring up a couple of things and some logic. We used to have, 50 years ago, when I was young, so I'm in my mid-60s, when I was young, we used to have debate clubs in high schools and colleges. That was common. The British tradition, other countries in America, the idea of a debate club, and you would debate a certain side of some issue. You may not even agree with the side, but you're told, hey, yes, debate this side, try and defend it and stuff. And some people are pretty good at debating. You got to assemble your facts, assemble your logic, and then move forward. So I wanted to give you what I consider some logical things to consider, and hopefully, again, be thought-provoking. Then I want to do my review of the first 9 episodes. Okay. In Old Testament times, got me here a Bible. The B-I-B-L-E, yes, that's the book for me. Hey, do you know what the word Bible stands for? I'm sorry, this is a joke. This is a joke some people tell. B-I-B-L-E, Basic Instructions Before Leaving Earth. Basic Instructions Before Leaving Earth. Okay, I laugh at my own jokes. That's how bad they are. Okay, no, it's not my joke. I don't know where it came from, but it's out there. Okay, in the Old Testament times, they hated the real prophets and they loved the false prophets. Have you heard that before? You've probably heard that before if you went to Sunday school, either as a Jew or a Christian and stuff. So in the Old Testament, they hated the real prophets. They loved the false prophets. The false prophets told them what they wanted to hear. The real prophets told them what they needed to know. That guy's not even trying to make me happy. He's telling me the truth. What is wrong with him? Okay, so the people loved the false prophets. Now, they wanted actually, for many of the false prophets, they would drive them out of town or sometimes even kill them. They wanted to kill them. That's pretty bad, the hatred. They wanted to get them to shut up, leave our city, get out of here. They wanted them, they didn't like the real prophets and wanted them dead. It would usually take decades or 2 or 3 or even 4 generations before people would realize, wait a minute, that Isaiah was onto something. Wait a minute, Jeremiah was telling the truth. That, all the different prophets, Ezekiel, Elijah, Nahum, there's a whole bunch of them. Obadiah, you've got a whole list of prophets in the Old Testament. Hold on here, I got my Bible here. Books of the Bible. So the Bible very briefly, the Bible starts with the first 5 books, the books of Moses. And then you have the Old Testament history type books. historical, giving a brief history, and then what's called the wisdom books, starting with Job, ending with Song of Solomon, and then the prophets, the books of the prophets. Okay, that's how the Old Testament has been organized. It is more of a logical rather than a chronological progression. And someone's reading the Bible for the first time, I mean, if they start in Genesis by Leviticus, they're usually going to give up because it's like it doesn't make any sense. Where I recommend you start is John, the Gospel of John. Okay, and many people do that. John, and I have recommended several times that you read, not skim, but read 2 books of the Bible and make them part of you, part of your life. Proverbs, and then John, the 4th Gospel. So the New Testament again starts with 5 books here, the 4 Gospels and Acts. Old Testament starts with 5 books of Moses. And then you've got all kinds of epistles, all kinds of letters giving instructions. Okay, that is your... And then the Bible... Okay, I'll give more information later. But basically, the times of the prophets, after Moses and Joshua, people had many prophets, and like I say, they hated them. They wanted to kill them. But later they would realize, hey, these were the guys who were telling the truth. But it usually would take a couple of generations. Okay. I love this part. I've been planning this for a couple months now. Okay, I want to do it right. Lord, help me to do this right. Okay, has human nature changed? It hasn't, has it? Has human nature changed? It hasn't. The first of the Republican presidents was a man named Abraham Lincoln. And we look at Abraham Lincoln today as one of America's greatest presidents, but that wasn't the case when he was alive. Half the country wanted to leave the United States because he was becoming president. That's how much they hated him. Hated. So what happens when someone hates someone is they believe every lie, every gossip, every innuendo, everything they can that's negative, that's hate-filled. So they hated Abraham Lincoln. Half the country seceded from the Union, became the Confederate States of America rather than USA, CSA, Confederate States of America. And America fought a very bloody, brutal war called the Civil War, also called, from Southerners, I've actually heard this before, the War of Northern Aggression. There's actually a few names, but the U.S. Civil War is the general name. Okay, so, and before Lincoln became president, there were dozens of men from the South who swore oaths that they would not eat until President-elect Lincoln was dead, and they swore to try to kill him. But he got to Washington, D.C. safely and became president, and then the states started seceding, and then everything else. Okay, now, some men, even in Lincoln's own cabinet, thought they were much smarter than Lincoln. Now, we're looking back from 150 years later, okay, about 150, 160 years later, and we can see, no, Lincoln had a lot of wisdom. He was not always the fastest speaker, but he was able to look at the whole situation to be able to back up. It took decades before people realized Abraham Lincoln was a good president, and in fact, a great U.S. president. Okay, now then. Like I said, I've been planning this for a couple months, and I want to be logical. I want you to understand what I'm saying. I know I ramble, I jump off on tangents, and I've got to try to not do that during this sequence. Can you think? Are you able to think? Can you discern? Or do you just follow the loudest voices? What do you think? About yourself, what do you think? Jesus said in Matthew 7, verses 13 and 14, don't follow the broad path that leads to destruction, but follow the narrow path that leads to life. Okay? Gee, that's interesting. Follow the narrow path. That means less people are going to find the truth, are going to realize what the reality is, what the situation is, and the general population of the general people, which may include many of the leaders, could be wrong. Okay? Jesus said that. If we look back at Old Testament times, we look at Abraham Lincoln, we can see that that is a pattern that can happen in human nature. Herd mentality. Murr, murr, murr. I told you I was going to try and stay off the tangents. Just a second here. Just a second. Stay on the track. Keep the main subject. quit doing weird stuff like mooing. Okay, excuse me, I just had to, excuse me, okay, I'm feeling better now. Okay, so now, Richard Nixon, was he a good president? What do you think? I'm old enough that I was a boy when Richard Nixon was president, or I was in junior high, I was a teenager when Nixon was president. Oh, they hated him. Oh, they hated Nixon. They loved Kennedy, loved Johnson, or tolerated Johnson. Johnson had some negatives. They loved Kennedy. Richard Nixon, was he a good president or a bad president? What do you think? There's people today still hate him. What about Ronald Reagan? Ronald Reagan had a good sense of humor. He was able to defuse many of his critics. He was very good. Just a moment. I'm sorry when I cough sometimes on camera. I realize later that's how loud that is, and I don't want to cough. But if my throat gets, okay, if I talk too much, I cough out of irritation to the throat. Okay. Ronald Reagan, he had good humor. He would make jokes out of it. The media would come at him, and he would make a joke about it, and it would defuse it. He was very good at that. Not everyone's good at that. Okay, let's move forward. I'm going to jump past a few presidents. What about a man named Donald E. Trump? Very non-controversial, quiet, mousy, dare I say, mousy, back in the shadows, wallflower kind of guy, right? You know who I'm talking about, right? Donald Trump, you know who I'm talking about? Me? You talking to me? I'd rather just sit here in the dark, kind of quiet. Okay, okay, he's different than that. Okay, Donald Trump. Was he a good president? What do you think? Can you figure this out? Can you think? I'm asking you a question. Okay, I need to give you the evidence. Let's look at one thing. Let's just look at one recurring news story and see if you can figure out whether he was a good president or not. Your decision. Completely your decision. Okay, have you heard that Trump colluded with the Russians? Have you heard that? It was on the news every week, the left-wing news. Every week. Trump colluding with the Russians. Boy, he sure is a pawn. Putin just is laughing every day. That Trump just does whatever Putin says, doesn't he? Man, they interfered with our elections and got Trump elected. Okay, so now that's what they're saying, right? I'm just speaking generally. Okay, Putin came to power between 2000 and 2002, consolidating his power. George W. Bush, the second Bush the younger, the older Bush from the late 80s and early 90s was George H.W. Bush, his father. I'm talking about George W. Bush, who won in the year 2000, was president. Okay, Russia bombed in Chechnya and subjugated them, didn't they? Okay, now that's what happened when George W. Bush was president. Next president, Barack Hussein Obama. Okay, during Barack Hussein Obama's 8 years in the White House, Russia took Crimea from Ukraine, didn't it? Didn't they do that? They did, didn't they? So Russia took Crimea. Okay, under Trump becomes president. Russia took nothing. Okay, next, Joe Biden comes into office, and Putin decided to try to take all of Ukraine, didn't he? Isn't that what happened? I mean, we got a war going on now, at least at the time this is being filmed, which is July of 2023. Under President Joe Biden, Putin decided to launch an attack and try to take Ukraine. It's been a very messy, very bloody, very difficult war. Every war is horrific. Okay, so now, did Trump collude with the Russians? I'll give you the evidence again, and you see if you can figure it out. I'm just going to relax here. This is, okay, whatever. I can say this without even really thinking about it. Okay, so George W. Bush is president. Putin comes to power in Russia, and he bombs in Chechnya. Okay, that's under George Bush as president. Then President Obama is in the White House, and Putin takes Crimea from Ukraine, right? Okay, right? So Obama was. Is there anyone out there saying that Obama was a pawn of the Russians? Just a second. No. No. How about George W. Bush? No. No. But when Bush was president, they bombed in Chechnya. When Obama was president, Russians took Crimea. Crimea is a beautiful area, by the way. It's really beautiful. I've been to Ukraine before. Anyway, and it's got beautiful sea coasts. I have friends from there. Okay, so anyway. Let's see. So then under Trump, remember that Trump colluded with the Russians? I'm sorry. They took nothing. Zero. Nada. Sorry I raised my voice. So many people can't think. Okay, they took nothing. Okay, then Joe Biden got in the White House after the November 20. Remember November 2020, how the elections and what was happening, and then they shut off the counting, and then the next morning, oh, Joe Biden won. Joe Biden won. And so Biden got into the White House, and now they're trying to take all of Ukraine. Okay, I'm going to leave it to you to decide by logic, not by the loudest voices, not by the herd instinct, the herd mentality. I'm going to do a moo again. Okay, I'm going on now. You decide. If you can figure out this one thing, this one news story that they've been propagating every week for what, 6 or 7 years now? Trump colluded with Russia. Oh, that Putin is just laughing so much. He just got little. I'm sorry. He got Donald Trump wrapped around his little finger. Well, how come those? Okay, so anyway, you get the idea. If you can figure out this one thing, it's going to begin you down a path. I'm going to say this before. I pray for wisdom. Pray for wisdom. Pray for protection from deceptions. There's one other thing I want to mention here, and then I'm going to go into my the 9 previous episodes. In the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve sin. Okay, there's a deception. The serpent comes to Eve and says, have you tried some fruit of this tree? And says, oh, we're not supposed to eat of that fruit. We're not even supposed to touch it, which had been added from what God said. Long story. And then she eats some. Her husband, Adam, eats some. That day, then they realize then they're naked, and there's a qualitative change in who and what they are. They have disobeyed God, openly disobeyed the Creator. God says, where are you? Adam, where are you? Did you eat of the fruit of the tree I told you not to? Where are you, Adam? And Adam admits, being a man, being a very manly man, Adam admits that he did it. Here's what he said. Here's what Adam said. This is how I picture Adam, okay? This is how I picture Adam. The woman who you gave me, she tricked me. She told me to do it. Okay, so being a very manly man. Yeah, hooah, right? Guys? Okay, so he blames everyone except himself for what he did. Okay, I need to stay on topic. And then God asks Eve what happened, and she says, the serpent deceived me. Okay? So they acted under a deception, so God said, okay, because you made decisions and acted according to this deception, I'm going to cut you a break this time and not judge you. Okay? So that's what happened in the Garden of Eden, right? Is that what happened? No, it isn't. No, it isn't. They believed, and they acted on the deception. It made changes to them and in their environment, and it made horrific changes for all the rest of the human race after that. When you believe deceptions in the modern world, whether it's a deception about, well, for 30 years in the later part of the 20th century, they were saying that there's a new ice age coming, new ice age. I talked about that a couple of episodes ago. I'll mention it here when we get through I don't remember exactly which episode. But Walter Cronkite reported it. Leonard Nimoy was narrated at least one special. The BBC there were several specials they believed were going into a new ice age. Problem was, after like 30 years, the yes, you had some really cold winters sometimes, and of course they'd say, "Oh, this is proof we're going into a new ice age. Look," and so they would say that and stuff, but the data just didn't match up. Okay, so then things changed after the 1990s. Things changed. People tend to follow a herd instinct, whether it's true or not. Everybody knows this. What are you, against science? Everybody knows such and such, and then they just follow. Okay. If you believe deceptions and you act on them, which, well, because that's the whole idea of the deception, you're going to be judged for that. Is that fair? You know, in a way, maybe it's not fair, but I'm sorry, that's the world we live in. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm sorry, that's the world we live in. If you believe Isaiah is a terrible guy and you pick up some rocks, Isaiah, we told you to get out of town, and then you kill Isaiah, you've killed one of God's real prophets, haven't you? How about Jeremiah? How about Elijah? How about Ezekiel? Right? I mean, jumping forward, I use Republican presidents. That's just one example. There's many different examples. I use that because it's an obvious one. I'm in America, and it's generally known in the world. Abraham Lincoln was the first presidential candidate to say that he was openly an abolitionist. Lincoln, when he was campaigning, openly said slavery is wrong. Oh, that's not trying to appeal to everybody. That's not trying to play both sides. He's telling what he really thought. Slavery is wrong. And so the whole one half of the United States, maybe not exactly half, it's a war that lasted, 3.5 years. It was during the rest of Lincoln, almost all of Lincoln's first term, and then he was assassinated coming into his second term. By the way, Lincoln's second inaugural address, if you've never read it, read it online sometime, or I'll find a video version somebody's put up, or with an actor with a Lincoln beard and stuff reading it. Read Lincoln's second inaugural address. So much wisdom. Anyway, okay, I'm getting way off subject. If you believe deceptions, when I lived, I'm just going to say one more thing now, then I'm going on to the 9 episodes. When I lived in Berkeley, I would sometimes ask people, so I'm a conservative, you probably figured that out by now, but I've lived in all different places in the world. I lived in Europe for 3 years, lived in Japan for 5 years, I've lived in Vermont, lived in Texas, lived in Chicago, lived in Florida, lived in California. I'm mostly from Seattle and Portland. That's mostly where I'm originally from. I'm in Indiana now. That's where I live. Thank the Lord. I'm in the middle of America, and actually a very normal part of from my perspective, normal part of the country, without all the excesses that are out there, at least without many of the excesses that are out there. Anyway, sometimes I would ask someone who I didn't really know, and I'm just kind of querying, what do you think of Rush Limbaugh? And of course, they just hated him, Rush Limbaugh. And then I would wait till they gnashed their teeth and the foam is coming out of the sides of their mouth, how much they hated Rush Limbaugh. And then my next question, which I already knew the answer, my next question was, how much have you listened to him? Have you heard of him? And their usual answer was, never, I've never listened to him. Sorry for raising my voice. So who's the one who's prejudiced? Was it Rush Limbaugh? Or prejudice being related to the word to prejudge. Rush Limbaugh, he was on the radio 30 years, 5 days a week, 3 hours a day, for free. Couldn't be bothered to listen to him for even 1 hour. In his later years, he would have 20 million listeners on any one day. Do you know the cable news networks think they got to win if they got 2 million? If they got 1/10, if they got 10% as many viewers or listeners as Rush Limbaugh, oh, we're very influential. Okay, I need to come back. Okay, I need to stop using logic. Oh my goodness, it's amazing what people... Okay, so in episode 1, that was the introduction, I said all the time. I talked about the books of the Bible, gave you introduction on several things, including my background, where I'm from, stuff like that. I also talked about the Bible's timeline, the timeline of Scripture. And you can, using the Bible, starting at about 4000 BC, we're in about 2000, a little bit over AD, right? So that's 6,000 years. There's a verse in the Bible that says, "A day is as to the Lord, the day is as 1,000 years, 1,000 years is a day." And that's just an interesting verse, isn't it? But you can divide world history into halves, 3,000 years, 3,000 years, into halves using the Bible. From creation until the time of Israel under David and Solomon, and then from when they were at their zenith, from David and Solomon until today. Okay? You can also, by using the Bible, divide human history into about thirds. From creation until the time of Abraham and Job is about 2,000 years. So that was, halves is 3,000, 3,000, 3,000. Now dividing into thirds is 2,000 years. See if I can hold this somehow. Here's 2,000 years from creation until Abraham and Job. Abraham and Job appear to have been contemporaries, but they didn't know each other. As far as we know, they never met. We don't know. There's no evidence of it, so we don't know. And then 2,000 years from Abraham until the Messiah, till Jesus came. Okay? So this is the entire Old Testament period here. Okay? New Testament is all written in one generation. So the oldest book of the Bible, codified book of the Bible, is Job. Job was written about 2000 BC. 2,000 years coming in from creation until Job. Then about a 400-year gap or so. Then the rest of the Old Testament, and then it stops. And then about a 400-year gap. And the Messiah came, and the entire New Testament is written in one generation at the beginning of the New Testament period, what's sometimes called the New Testament period, and that was 2,000 years ago until today. So my understanding is we see our world coming towards rapidly coming towards what looks like a one world government, and horrific conditions. Of course, what will be on the news is how wonderful everything is, but no, for most people it will be absolutely terrible. So that's episode 1. Okay, what I talked about. Now, and a whole bunch of other things. 666. Let me mention this. There are so many. Now, I'm not an expert on Bible prophecy. I'm not really an expert on any one thing. I'm kind of a jack of all trades. That's what I say. But 603 score and 6. 603 score and 6. 666. There's these people who write these books on Bible prophecy. Oh, 666 means this, it means that. Honestly, it is so amazing what people will come up with. Always use the Bible to interpret the Bible. First, you got to learn the Bible. First, you got to study the Bible well enough. And many people who posture themselves as being teachers and prophets, or as I'm an expert on this. Look at my suit. Did you see the French cuffs here on the suit here? Anyway, they don't know their Bible at all, and then they write books and they make money. And yeah, I am a really great speaker, aren't I? Yeah, did I tell you how wonderful I am? Yeah, let me just tell you. Okay, 666 actually is that number is used 2 other times in the Bible. That's your clue. That's how you find out what 666 means. So in 1 Kings 10:14, and then in 2 Chronicles 9:13. Those two, you can look up the verses. I'll say it again. 1 Kings 10:14, 2 Chronicles 9:13. Both times, 666 was the number of talents of gold that Solomon brought in a year. Okay? And that's our clues. What does it mean? Who's Solomon? He's the son of David. He has a lot of wisdom. People come from all over the known world to visit Jerusalem at that time and meet Solomon and learn of his wisdom. So who is, and it's money. It's money we're talking about, gold. The golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules, right? I'm sorry, that's the other golden rule. It's the one I hear. Okay, I also mentioned Black Wisdom Matters, okay? Black Wisdom Matters. If you can spend an hour, hour and a half, these are short episodes. They're only like 12 to 15 minutes each, and it's a lot of wisdom. These are conservative African-American people, mostly men. I think there's one or two women in it, using logic, common sense, and modern history to look at our world. Black Wisdom Matters. I also mentioned Learn the Bible in 24 Hours, an excellent resource. 24 one-hour sessions. If you go through that a couple of times methodically, you will know your Bible better, the main themes of the Bible better than the majority of pastors, priests, and rabbis. Okay. I also mentioned Kent Hovind's seminar number 3. There's a lot of creation speakers out there. Kent Hovind is one of the best, if not the best. And then among his seminar series, seminar number 3, Dinosaurs in the Bible, is the single most popular one. And so it's been out there for, 15 years, or actually with different versions, over 20 years he's been teaching it, Dr. Kent Hovind. And it's free. It's on the internet on YouTube. It's on my webpage, which is creationism.org. It's in 25 languages. Kent Hovind Seminar number 3, subtitled. It's in audio dubbed in both English and Chinese. Oh, I'm sorry, it's also in Hebrew. Come to think of it, audio dubbed. And the first, there's actually, go to my webpage, creationism.org, and then look under the language you're interested in, whether it's Japanese, Croatian, or Russian, or Estonian, or whatever it is, and you'll see what all is available gospel-wise for that language, or Arabic, or whatever language. Okay, let's move on to episode 2. In episode 2, I talked about movies, particularly old movies, movies from the silent film era in the early 30s and 40s. Just a second. I love the old classics, I really do. And so many people today have never seen a silent film. I'll tell you what, there's some great ones out there. So that's what I talk about in episode 2. The last of the films I talk about is Casablanca. And I also mentioned several others that I mentioned. It Happened One Night with Clark Gable and Claudette Colbert. And these are such good movies. I don't want to pump them up too much, and then people go, oh, he said it was fantastic, better than sliced bread. Anyway, I really like these films. Okay, so now, episode 3, I wanted to move into faith. I wanted to move into our faith, our walk with God, because as I mentioned, I would contend that the spiritual is more important than the material. This time on earth, this 50 years, 60, 70, 80, 90 years that you and I have on planet Earth, this is not life. This is a temporary time of learning and testing. We need to get this clear in our minds. We need to realize we are created beings. Atheism teaches something from nothing for no reason. And then they call it science. Excuse me, say what? That's not science, is it? Something in science, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Therefore, we have a creator, right? Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Therefore, we have a creator. Creator or creators, he, she, it, or they, right? Right? This is logical, what I'm about to say. God, who are you? God or gods? Why did you make me? Is there a purpose for my life? Have you ever prayed that? Why not? What are you afraid of? It might be better to find out now rather than to find out the hard way after you die. Okay, and then you failed all the tests. There's some people who make lots of money. Oh, I am so successful. I have so much money. That makes you successful? That's not what the Bible says. The Bible's got these things called the 10 Commandments. Right here. And then Jesus codified, Rabbi Jesus, the 2 commandments. What are the 2 greatest commandments? Get as much money as you can, drive a big car, have a big house, and then look disdainfully at the little people. Little people down there. I have built a financial empire with factories, and actually my production floor, I'm referring to a particular company, but I'm not going to say its name, where the restrooms are on a different floor than the little people. Too bad for them. They're just little people. They're standing there doing this, monitoring every motion they make to see their efficiency. And then they have a short break, and the restroom is on a different floor than where they work. There's actually a particular company that does that. That man, he may have billions of dollars. What a piece of piece of chaff. Let me use a biblical term. The wheat and the chaff grow together. At the end of this life, the chaff is no longer needed. What's the first commandment? Make as much money as you can. No. Love God with your heart, soul, mind, and strength. What's the second commandment? Love your neighbors yourself. Are you doing that? Okay. So 3. So I talk about that we're all sinners. We should pray to our Father in heaven. We should pray for wisdom. Pray for wisdom, protection from deceptions. I also gave some basic Christian doctrines. Episode 4, Seeking Balance. I decided to do this because so many of us are dancing as fast as we can. We're just, every day it's like when you get home from work or from school, you're just exhausted, right? And so I talked about nutrition. I actually spent probably half the time about that. I didn't show you these before. This is a popular brand called One A Day Vitamins. It's a popular brand. I also showed you some other vitamins that I take. There's a few of them out there. And then if you don't like pills, this is a powder, Zip Fizz, a little bit expensive, but this is a lot of good stuff in it. So I buy these by the case. You can get the individual ones. You're going to pay a lot more. This is actually a display type case, but let's see if I can show you to the camera here. Hey. Okay, so it's actually a display case for people to be able to buy individual ones, but not me. I get the whole case, and this is what I use when I'm on long trips. I'm driving and I start getting tired. This has so much vitamin B12 in it, and I'll take part of one, and then it actually helps me stay revived. I think vitamin B12, now I take caffeine also. I drink coffee each day, but for, say, long extended things you're getting tired of, I prefer vitamin B12. Yerba mate also has some caffeine in it. It's an herb. Anyway, and then emergency. Okay, there's a whole bunch of different vitamins out there, all different brands. Please consider the idea of taking a multivitamin. We're in a world with so many toxins. What happens on the other... I didn't bring a pointer stick with me. Okay, you got the world behind me. And let's say you have manufacturing going on over here in Asia, okay? Well, the winds are circling the earth, okay? Those fumes, those pollutants go up into the air, they get mixed, they get in the upper atmosphere, and then the jet stream carries them around the world. And a week, 5 to 7 to 10 days later, those same particles, but diluted, are over North America. About another 5 or 6 days after that, they're over Europe. Right? These are circling the globe. We're being hit with toxins, so many unnatural man-made chemicals. Give your body the best fighting chance. Please consider taking extra vitamin C. Okay. Oh, in episode 1, something I forgot to mention. I mentioned several things. One of them was the idea of consider getting out there. Consider having the ability to be mobile. Our world is changing. Please consider the idea of getting a passport, no matter what country. Right now, you can generally do it. If you wait until it's too late, till the world starts closing down, storms are coming. I believe, I could be wrong, I hope I'm wrong. 2 or 3, 5 years from now, point at me, if you see me on the street, just point at me and just start laughing. Ha, 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 ha. I believe storms are coming. You're going to need some liquidity. You're going to need mobility. You might need, in the 1930s in Europe, when the Nazis came to power, it was sometimes every month made a difference as the Nazis were coming to power and then closing things down. If you already had a passport, you already had the ability to travel, you had some liquidity, you could move. By the time the general population figured out, hey, something's really wrong, it's too late. We could have changes in the laws that say, why are you applying for a passport now? Why do you want a passport? I'm sorry, we're going to have to decline it. You don't need a passport, citizen. Go back and do your drudgery job and trust us that we're going to take care of you, okay? One nation under government. Head back to your job, do your work. Property of the state, one nation under government. Okay, let's see. Seeking balance, so physically and spiritually, okay? And as I mentioned, nutrition. Give your body the tools it needs. Iodine. I still have my book loaned out. I have a book called The Iodine Crisis, but I can show you what the cover looks like. If you don't get enough, you don't need very much, but if you don't get enough iodine, your IQ goes down by up to 10 points. If you don't get enough potassium on a daily basis, which most people are not getting enough potassium, they have salts where salt is usually sodium chloride. Well, potassium chloride is also a stable thing. Look at here. I'm going to put the minerals up here. You need about 2 to 3 times as much potassium on a daily basis for your biochemical reactions in your brain and body as you do sodium. We're getting overloaded with salt, with sodium chloride. Why don't you switch, at least at home, and then you can even take a little shaker with you, to a half and half. I'll show you a couple of brands here. I'm just showing you the brands. These are ones, what they look like, so you can buy them in the store or buy them online or whatever, okay? Anyway, we're being hit so hard by so many things. So many young people taking that next energy drink. And then they feel good for the next couple hours and then they drop again. No, fuel your body properly. Strengthen your body. Give it the tools it needs. Don't try to force it to do that last thing, that one more thing. Okay, that was episode 4. Episode 5, $20 prepper. I lived in Japan. I wrote for a magazine, wrote for a government newspaper, did all kinds of stuff, became an expert on earthquake preparedness for foreigners in Japan. So that's part of my experience of my background for then making this, what I call like a $20 prepper kit. The idea is 3 days, no matter where you are in the country or even in a foreign country, wherever you're at in the world. Within 3 days, help is on its way, right? You've got to survive that first 2 or 3 days. Maybe the roads are blocked, maybe the airports, maybe whatever it is, a hurricane, a typhoon, an earthquake, some kind of big fire, right? Maybe the fires in Canada get even worse or something like that. Anyway, I mean, whatever it is, you got to survive those first 3 or 4 days. Please buy 2 gallons of water, if nothing else. Will you please get some jugs of water? You can do without food for 3 or 4 weeks. But you cannot do without water and quality liquid for more than 2 or 3 days. Your body will start shutting down, your kidneys shut down. Okay, so please don't, and water is cheap. It's $1 a gallon being what, about 3.5 liters or so. So buy 8 liters of water, 7 or 8 liters of water. It can't be that expensive no matter where you are in the world. Just put it in the bottom of a closet and let it sit there per person. If you're a 4-person household or whatever, buy a case of it and just have it available. Yes, it's heavy to carry. It's a lot better to buy it 6 months early than 1 day too late. Okay? It's going to last for years, 5 years, 8 years, however long it's going to last. Okay? Episode 5. Episode 6, Poor Man's EDC. EDC means everyday carry. EDC, everyday carry. I watch these kind of shows and I think they're interesting, but sometimes the stuff they carry is so expensive. And it's like, oh my goodness, what is all this stuff? And so I talked about what I carry, and that's usually cheap stuff or thrift store or Walmart. I buy my stuff at different stores, whatever, it's on sale. And here's my flashlight, current flashlight that I'm using. It's actually better than most. Usually I have one that's a smaller version that has less battery capacity. This one, though, fits in my pocket, works pretty well. And then I have a Swiss Army knife that I am carrying at this time. I have carried Leathermans in the past, or Gerbers and stuff like that. Okay, $20 prepper. Or Poor Man's EDC. Episode 6, Poor Man's EDC, what I carry each day. Episode 7, I worked for Microsoft. I worked for Intel. I was part of the dot-com boom. I've done consulting for various companies. I've worked at computer shows in multiple countries, actually. And I've also had 2 articles published in a particular hacker magazine called 2600. I guess I don't need to aim at both cameras. I'll be later in editing, I'll be switching to one or the other. 2600 is a hacker magazine. It tells hackers how to break into places. That's legal, I guess, to tell people. Evidently it's legal. This is the 40th anniversary issue, summer of 2023. 40th anniversary issue. And it tells how to break into a bank, how to do this, how to get free internet through some particular hotel chain, how to get free satellite radio, it just gives, here's the instructions. It's kind of amazing. I look at it in that episode, Computer Security, I talk about it's kind of like those drug paraphernalia shops they have in different cities. The drugs themselves may not be legal, but the paraphernalia that goes with the drugs, that can be sold. Well, yeah, I just want to buy it for a hobby. I just want to have it, man. Would everybody stop spinning around? Anyway, but the drugs are illegal, so they can. So the information. I think this is a similar thing. So the information of how to hack into a bank or into a hotel or into a supermarket chain or something like that. If you do computer security for any kind of industrial or commercial type things, if you've never read, go to Barnes & Noble and pick up a copy of 2600. Would you at least read 1 or 2 issues? Better yet, subscribe. They have electronic editions or print editions, okay? And I like I say, I've had 2 articles published in here in the past, okay? Not a hacker. Just kind of a guy who wants to know what's going on. Episode 8, Personal Finances. My emphasis is on low budget. I've mostly had a low budget life. I've had some great jobs. I've been up, I've been down, I've been able to travel internationally. I thank the Lord for the life He's let me lead. There's a lot that I've been really low budget, and sometimes where I've had needed stuff, or there's been 3 times in my adult life, as I mentioned before, where I didn't own a car and for 5 years at a time. And so how do you get around? What do you do? So I talk about that. I talk about traveling, talk about budgeting, things like that. Okay, episode 9. That's the previous episode to this one. This is 10, as I mentioned, as you know. And in 10, I called it Prayer 2 because I go back to episode 3. Not go back to episode 3, but build on episode 3 on prayer, basic doctrines, how we should be. We should be reverent before God. God has all power over us. You know, there's a couple of verses where Jesus says, don't fear men who can kill your body, fear God who can destroy your soul. And that's logical, if it makes sense, right? You may have some multi-millionaire or billionaire out there who for 30 years or 40 years is really powerful and thinks he's hot stuff and everything like that. And in some ways they are, but they're in for a rude awakening, a rude surprise when they hit the end of this life and find out the hard way that they've been chasing illusions, chasing facades. And I use bulls as an example. I went to the bullfights in Mexico City one time. I introduced this in Personal Finances, episode 8, but then I referred to again in episode 9. And in the bullfights, the bull's never been there before. All the people in the stands have been there. They know what happens. The bull runs out. He chases the red cape or the pink cape. Ole! Ole! And the crowd watches, and the bull just keeps trying to hit it, and he's hitting nothing. He's using all his strength. This is a very powerful animal. He's never been there before. In a similar way, you and I have never been here before. This is our first time and only time in life. The Bible says it's appointed unto man once to die. There's no reincarnation. Not according to the Bible. Appointed unto man once to die, and after that, to judgment. This is our only time here. And some people are just chasing, right? Ole! Ole! Look at the human chase the money. Ole! Look at him chase look at him or her chase for fame and chase for being famous, chase for temporary security. There's no security at all. He can't even control his own heartbeat. And here he has got, there's. It is really unfortunate. Bill Gates used to be personal opinion. As a young man, as a boy, he was a God-fearing boy, but he fell. He fell from the understanding of right and wrong. When I read. This is several years ago. That when he was 12, so he and I both grew up in Seattle. I never met him. As far as I know, I never met him. When he was 12 years old, he memorized Matthew 5, 6, and 7, which is called the Sermon on the Mount. And his pastor took him for lunch at the Space Needle. I read that several years ago somewhere. So he started out life pretty good, but then he fell. I don't know why. Today he's part of the internationalists, the global elite, who want us brought under control, or maybe even they can do what is that called? Not enhancing. What is it? Gain of function. They're doing gain of function stuff to try to. Okay. Anyway, that's a different story. Okay. So what's going to happen in the future? I'd like to talk about that, but it's been almost an hour now, and I've been. I have a feel of pressure that my episodes are way too long. So I'm going to end here at what I've done so far. I'm going to ask you to pray for me. If you think about me, pray for me. I have two web pages, creationism.org, which is in about 100 languages, reaches out around the world, started like 25, 26 years ago. And then my web page, this series, Give Life, is on, and that's paulzilla.org. Paulzilla was a nickname I had when I lived in Japan. So Paul Abramson, Paulzilla. Kind of like Godzilla, only smaller, but with the same likable personality. Okay, so you get the idea. So I hope that these episodes are edifying, educational, entertaining. I hope that you've been able to glean some things out of this. If so, please tell other people, let folks know, subscribe if you want to. It's on my webpage, and you can download these, and they're free to copy. Please don't edit them in a mean way. Some people do that. They'll edit things and chop out and try to make the person look like a fool just because they disagree with them. Why be mean? Why not lift people up? Why not try to build people up? You disagree with me, that makes me automatically wrong? Are you kidding? Well, maybe they're not kidding. They're just, he's automatically wrong. It's often very young people in their 20s who, have you ever seen these videos, you know, owned in 15 seconds? Excuse me. Owned in 15 seconds. Owned in 7 seconds. It's like, you might want to get out a little bit more. The older you get, the less you know. The more you realize, the older you get, the more you realize, the less you know. I've met, well, I need to finish. I've met Muslims, I've met Jews, I've met Buddhists, I've met a variety of people who are very sincere in their beliefs, how God is going to judge them. I can tell you what I know for myself, and that's that I need to accept Jesus as my Savior, Jesus as the Messiah of Israel who came. I believe God is merciful, God is loving, but many people are purposely disobeying the Lord's commandments. Many of them are people who call themselves Christians. Billy Graham once said, if you live in a garage, does that make you a car? I can't, that's not an exact quote. If you live in a garage, that doesn't make you a car, right? Just because you go to church all the time, that doesn't make someone a Christian. Jesus said there are many on that day who are going to say to me, Lord, Lord, in your name we did this, we did that. And Jesus says, I never knew you. Depart from me. So there's many people who call themselves Christians who are complete hypocrites. I hope I'm not a complete hypocrite. Oh, wait, I said that wrong, didn't I? I hope I'm not absolutely a complete 100%. I'm sorry. We're all sinners. I'm a sinner. I am very imperfect, okay? But I pray that I am helping and giving to people. So, need to finish? I've made it barely under 1 hour. Isn't that fantastic? God bless you. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.